Welcome. My name is William J. Rothwell. Call me Bill, and I'd like to talk to you briefly about the DACUM process. DACUM is a rather unusual acronym because DACUM stands for Developing a Curriculum. Curriculum is one of those strange Latin words that basically means to run a race. But as we all know from our educational experiences, a curriculum is an instructional plan. So that's what DACUM is all about, is developing an instructional plan to give someone training or give them a job map and overview, which we call a DACUM chart, for all of the elements needed to perform a job. So many organizations have used the DACUM method, and it was first invented at Ohio State University. And the idea is based on basic brainstorming. In a DACUM process, we bring together a panel of workers, usually 8 to 12 people, a facilitator whose goal is to pull out of that group exactly what they do on a daily basis, a group of recorders who write down what the people on the panel say to them that they do on a daily basis, and on occasion we may bring in observers who are being trained to do the DACUM process, or else are there to provide a third-party perspective on the job map that the incumbent workers, the veteran performers, come up with. So the DACUM process is based on the assumption that the best experts for a job are the people who actually do the job. So anybody can look at the job and identify what they do on a daily basis. We typically call those tasks, and we organize them eventually into categories. So it might be helpful if I explain the basic approach and then drill down a little bit and talk about how DACUM actually works, and then offer some thoughts about how that process might be improved. So first step is, I mentioned that DACUM is based on brainstorming. So picture the situation. We bring together in a room, usually one with 4 walls, not one with a lot of windows in it. We bring in a group of veteran performers, usually 8 to 12. There's a facilitator, and seated in front of the facilitator is one or several recorders. Now, I've done a lot of DACUM sessions, and I can tell you the speed of the DACUM depends on how many helpers you have to do the writing. So in the first step, just as in classic brainstorming, the first step is idea generation. And there we typically ask the group of veteran performers to write down on a sheet of paper 1 to 5 to 10 things that they do on a daily basis, always starting with an action word, a verb. And so we don't want a complete sentence. We want them to indicate what they do on a daily basis in action-oriented form. So then after they've written down 5 to 10 things, we do this to prime the pump. We tell them that we're going to go around the table and we're going to ask them what they do on a daily basis, and to give one thing at a time, not all 5 or 10 things that they've written, one thing at a time. And while they're talking, the facilitator is essentially playing traffic cop, indicating which person should speak, and the speed of the process depends on how quickly the recorders can write down on a sheet of paper, usually with bold magic marker in a bold color like black, exactly what the person said, and then another helper takes a piece of tape and puts it up on the wall. So as we go around the room with 8 to 12 people, we are capturing a lot of content, one action at a time. Then it's written down on a sheet of paper and posted up on the wall. And we keep doing that until we run out of ideas. People can't think of anything they do on a daily basis. Before we get started, we always warn people, you know, there's likely to be some overlap. Don't be scared off by that. Don't let it stop you from talking. Just give us, and we will keep going until we all run out of ideas and we no longer have anything to write down. So it all depends on the complexity of the job as to how many things they can think of that they do on a daily basis. So step one is idea generation. We pull out of them everything they can think of they do on a daily basis. We post it up on the wall. Then we give them a break. And during the break, we may pull in some of the observers, like some of their supervisors, for example, point to the wall, which probably looks like a big mess of unrelated activities, and we say to them, we need to organize these activities into certain categories, certain groups of related activities or tasks. And then we rely on the expert helper, the supervisor or a very experienced worker, to give us suggestions about how to organize that material. So there's two theories there. We could do it based on work process, the way the work flows from beginning, middle, and end, to the logic of what's up there. So we know from, for example, qualitative research that you can develop categories based on analyzing themes. Well, example, supervisors. If you do a DACUM with supervisors, they're probably going to list out a lot of the written reports that they have to generate for the company. Like they have to do things like attendance, tardiness reports, performance reviews, budget documents, and all of those might go into one category of paperwork. So while the group is on break, we use our confidant, our helper, to pull down all the sheets of paper once we've identified the categories, and then put them back up on the wall next to the categories. So you always read a DACUM chart from the top left to the right and then down to the next level. Remember, every sheet of paper is written in action format, not as a sentence, but starting with an action word like a verb. Then we bring back the group of people, and first we ask them if they agree with the categories. If they do, then we go through category by category, asking them if the task is properly positioned on the chart. In other words, does it match up to the category that we put it in? Because usually we do this very quickly. So there could be some misplacement of activities, or we could have things combined that should be separated, or we may have forgotten things that need to be put up there. So the second step in brainstorming, classic brainstorming, is analyzing or evaluating the quality of the ideas from the idea generation phase. And that's exactly what we do in the second step. We make sure that we have gotten the right tasks associated with the right duties or categories on the chart. And by this point, people are probably brain dead. They're exhausted from the process. We give them another break. We bring them back. We write down the number, like category 1 would be at the very top. Item A would be the very first task associated with that. B would be the second. And we would label the sheets of paper. Then we would take those back, type them up, recirculate them to the group a day or so after the event so they've had time to think about it. And always when we recirculate that DACUM chart, people say, wow, we forgot things. And they may list those out. There's another step that we might want to do in a DACUM. No one says you have to do any of this, but the third typical step is what other characteristics would be desirable for someone who does the DACUM or who does this job. And they might list off things like courage or being creative or ability to work on teams. That comes from the group of people who actually do the job. And so that's the typical process. Now I'll warn you about a couple of things. The first is DACUM is a really good approach to involve experienced workers in identifying what they do. It leads to an extremely detailed job description, far more detailed than the typical job description. We all know what those are like. It lists 6 or 7 things, and then it says, and all other duties as assigned, which might be 97% of the job. In a DACUM chart, we've unbundled that, and we've gotten down into the details. We've made it very granular. But a DACUM chart, when it's finished, answers only one question. What do people do on a daily basis? That is exactly the question it answers, and nothing else. It does not tell us how they do that, each of the tasks. It does not tell us how to measure those. It does not tell us what they should be doing on a daily basis. It answers only one question. What do people do on their jobs now? And from there, we may have to go through additional steps to answer those additional questions. But a DACUM is a very powerful approach, and it does have some flaws. One of those is it's based on their job as it is done now, not the way managers wish the job were done now, not the way the engineers say the job should be done. Instead, it's what the workers say they actually do on a daily basis. And so that's both the strength and the weakness of the approach. So that's a quick introduction to the DACUM process.